Can you believe school is back already?
I know, right? The year is going by so fast. And this year, I'm going to help the schools in my neighborhood by donating through Donors Choose.
That's an amazing idea. Donors Choose is the most trusted nonprofit that connects teachers and kids to donors who believe in them.
And their site is so easy to use. Searching for a local school on their map and finding match offers to boost my donation is a breeze.
Visit donorschoose.org/local and give today.
At T. Rowe Price, our curiosity lights the way to help you plan ahead for what matters to you most. Work directly with us, and together we can help uncover the right investments for you at every stage of your life, whatever your goals. That's the power of curiosity. Better questions, better outcomes. T. Rowe Price. Invest with confidence. Visit troweprice.com/investdirect to learn more.
Your dining room is the heart of your home, where meals are shared and memories are made. At Ashley, you'll find affordable dining furniture in a range of classic and modern styles. Ashley's small space sets and extendable tables are designed to fit beautifully into any space, from cozy breakfast nooks and kitchens to formal dining areas fit for a feast. And with mix-and-match seating options, everyone at your table gets the perfect seat. At Ashley, style is served. Shop in-store or online today.
Dougie,
Sam.
I'm going to ask a question that is sure to ruffle some feathers. Is Kai Havertz now an elite striker?
Into the box, he goes towards Kai Havertz! And Arsenal have their breakthrough! Kai Havertz with his 5th goal of the season!
Saudi Arabia, assalamu alaikum. Please take Kai Havertz from us. He ain't going nowhere. Give us £1 million.
In the Venn diagram of Arsenal being dazzling and Kai Havertz being astonishingly good, the grey area is there for all to see.
Kai Havertz is a jack of all trades, currently master of none.
Kai Havertz is the Arsenal hero.
To be honest, I've never been quite sure what his position is.
Yes, welcome to another episode of The Truth, and today we are walking on treacherous, polarising ground. We are talking Kai Havertz. I am Sam Tighe. Hello to my co-host Dougie Critchley.
Hi, Sam.
And hello to the Voice of God producer, Jack Collins.
Hello, Sam. Hello, Dougie. It's good to be back.
Jack, you and I have a real history with Kai Havertz, don't we? Cards on the table, we pretty much fell in love with him back when he was at Bayer Leverkusen, and I believe you tipped him for a Ballon d'Or. Is that correct?
I think it was a Ballon d'Or podium.
Doesn't exist. It's not a thing.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, it is in my head. I think I tipped him to finish in the top 3 of the Ballon d'Or, but I'm okay. I'm still okay with that. It did look a little bit treacherous as a prediction for a little while, but hey, look, I love Kai Havertz. I'm willing to back him, and I thought he was a special talent back at Leverkusen. Well, we're going to decide if he is a special talent today, aren't we?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, that was looking like a freezing cold take. But it has thawed very gradually over the course of the last couple of years. Dougie, this was actually your topic suggestion. So I want to open up by asking, why is it that you decided to suggest it?
Well, I think it's a good topic because it's a pretty divisive one. I think that some people will instantly read this and think, what? That can't be. That isn't right. Kai Havertz has flopped in England. And I think people are too quick to sort of forget what he was at Bayer Leverkusen, which was one of the outstanding young players in Europe that was wanted by pretty much every major club. Yes, it didn't work out necessarily as people expected at Chelsea for the reasons that we'll get onto during this podcast, but he still scored big goals, which again, we'll get onto. But since joining Arsenal, there has been a lot of talk from outside the club about the idea that they need to sign a superstar striker, a Victor Gyökeres, a Victor an Osimhen, etc. And
other first names are available.
Sorry?
Other first names are available.
Well, yeah, exactly. But so far, he's absolutely justified his place as Arsenal's starting striker in Arteta's system. And yes, it came about slightly by accident, but since Gabriel Jesus has struggled to stay fit, it feels like Kai Havertz is now, a bona fide number 1 pick for Arteta in that position, and is getting to the place where he's maybe universally appreciated.
Just going to, before we go any further, pick you up on the idea that he's universally appreciated, because I know for a fact that he's not. And I actually truly believe that when some people see the title of this podcast and see the topic, they'll be stunned by the question, because asking if someone is an elite striker would imply that everyone agrees that they're very good. Whereas I've got a couple of friends who think he's absolutely rubbish still.
Now?
Yeah, now. And I know WhatsApp groups can be a bit of a Wild West category, but when he failed to complete a single pass in an entire game of football against Manchester City, one of my groups went off. And my mate Matt thinks he's absolutely awful and used this as just constant ammunition for his agenda. So what do you say to those people?
I think that was more systemic, wasn't it? It was more, Arsenal really, it was like a 6-3 formation they went for. And I think that was a bit harsh. I mean, Jurrien Timber didn't complete that many. I think he maybe completed one in that game as well.
Thomas Partey got about 13. It wasn't a game for possession.
No, exactly. So I don't think
not just about that game though. Like that's another string to the bow of those who don't think he's very good. There are people out there. I too am surprised by this.
Yeah, I'm surprised by people that think he's a bad player. They might not think he's elite. It depends on your definition of elite, which I'm sure we'll get
there.
Onto. But yeah, no, I think he's improved in pretty much every facet. He's quite unique, and he's not for everyone's cup of tea. He's not going to dribble and beat 3 men from 40 yards out and then a sort of Messi-esque goal. But he's really effective in what he is good at. Finding space, very good in the air. He's very two-footed, I think, as well. And very intelligent player. But yeah, he's not the sort of... There's not if you created a comp right now of Kai Havertz's best goals since leaving Leverkusen, there's probably not that many outstanding goals that will live long in the memory. But I think he's very, very useful to have in your team. And, his current manager, Mikel Arteta, and even all his managers at Chelsea continually picked him, despite his struggles for form at various points. So he's definitely got his uses.
Okay, cool. So for the record, we think Kai Havertz is very good.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Might even be elite. We'll find out by the end of the podcast. Still not sure how I feel about this one. If we didn't think he was very good, this would be a very short podcast. We'd be finishing right here. So good news is we've got more material. But how good is he exactly? Let's talk about it. And let's begin by saying that all of this has happened very, very fast, because it really wasn't very long ago, as you say, Dougie, that he was being seriously questioned. He wasn't even recognised as a striker. He was still an attacking midfielder or just a central midfielder. And I think even Kai Havertz still believed that his best role was as a midfielder. A couple of quotes just to tee us up. This is basically 1 year ago, last summer. Havertz talking about his own game, saying, more or less, I am a midfield player, but I like to go in the box. Maybe that's why not every defensive player has me on their mind. I run through midfield and then I'm there. That's not him saying, I've got the ball and he's going to beat 3 players. That's him saying he's going to box crash. He's going to come in late. And that is a trait that you can only really execute if you are an attacking midfielder. Because if you're the number 9, you can't box crash late. It's very difficult. You should already be in the box. Arteta, when Havertz signed for Arsenal last summer, he will bring a huge amount of extra strength to our midfield. And my third entry of evidence is that when Arsenal signed him, they put him in the midfielder section on their website. So that's it. That's confirmation. Now, no surprise here, because he spent plenty of time playing attacking midfield for Chelsea. Some of it up front, we'll get to that, but some of it in midfield. Leverkusen, he was almost always attacking midfielder, usually as a 10, sometimes wide. Scored 17 and then 12 goals in the league in those 2 full seasons at Leverkusen as a 10, albeit with him on penalty kicks. Do you remember that Leverkusen Havertz, Dougie?
Yeah, he was exceptional. I think it was the highest scoring teenage season in Bundesliga history when he scored 17. And I think he finished second behind Marco Reus for Player of the Year in Germany that year, narrowly missing out by a handful of votes. And Marco Reus at that time was absolutely exceptional. Maybe not got the acclaim in wider Europe because he was injured for so many key moments for Dortmund. But yeah, this isn't about Marco Reus, this is about Kai Havertz. And he was really, really exciting.
I mean, that's a lot of goals to cut in quickly, because Florian Wirtz, who had a stunning season last season, Leverkusen obviously title winners, unbeaten, played the 10, was one of the best creators in Europe, 11 goals.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned Wirtz, because prior to Wirtz's arrival, Havertz was their most exciting youngster that's probably come through in the last 15, 20 years. I think that's probably fair to say. Yeah. I mean, he was the Bundesliga's youngest ever debutant when he made his debut at 17.
Do you remember, Jack, you and I were commentating on that game?
Really?
I mean, not properly.
Yeah, we did a hot mic.
Yeah, a hot mic, a little amateur commentary session that Jack and I did during lockdown.
During lockdown, yeah.
And Florian Wirtz stepped onto the pitch off the bench. They just nicked him from Werder Bremen, maybe?
He came across from Cologne.
Yeah, that's it. And they were against Werder Bremen. They just nicked him out of the academy at 16 and he came on the pitch and we were like, wow, he looks small.
Yeah. And little did you know.
Straight away.
Yeah. But I mean, Havertz then became the youngest player to 30 Bundesliga goals. He made 100 Bundesliga appearances by the age of 20. He was the first to ever score 35 league goals before the age of 21. In his final 2 seasons in Germany, he contributed 27 goals and assists in all competitions in each of those campaigns. And when he was signed by Chelsea, he was wanted by Bayern Munich. He was wanted by Barcelona, by Real Madrid, by Man United, by Liverpool. So Chelsea, it was seen as a real coup to get him at the time. Unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, it maybe didn't quite go to plan.
It didn't, no. Look, around that time, quite a lot of players moved over from the Bundesliga to the Premier League. And I think we all learnt a bit of a lesson there. I know some people will roll their eyes at what I'm about to say, but I think it's true. The evidence in front of me suggests that transition from Bundesliga to the Premier League is very difficult. Kai Havertz really struggled with it. Alongside him, players like Timo Werner also struggled with it. We look at the Bundesliga, you watch the end-to-end games, and I assumed that the energetic nature of these games meant that these players would transition very well. It wasn't really the case. And Kai Havertz got a fair few muscular injuries early on against in his Chelsea career, and he seemed to really struggle with the intensity of the play and never really got up to gear, and definitely couldn't survive in midfield. So the Chelsea career was very poor overall, but he'll never be regarded as a flop because he scored one particular goal when he was playing striker in the Champions League final against Manchester City that won Chelsea the Champions League. So he's forever exonerated for anything that he did poorly because he scored the most important goal that Chelsea have scored in the last 5, 6, whatever it is, years. Now, I'm sure Chelsea were probably pretty happy when Arsenal decided to pay a lot of money for Kai Havertz, £65 million, I believe, in the summer of 2023. And at the time, as I said to you, Arteta described him as a midfielder. Arsenal categorised him as a midfielder. Granit Xhaka had just left for Bayer Leverkusen, and we were given these reports that suggested that Havertz would become the left 8 at Arsenal. That was the plan, the left 8. And I can believe that because he basically played that role for half a season. There were a couple of hints, though, mostly against Manchester City in these games where he did play up front. Those were arguably his best showings. First game he ever played for Arsenal, Community Shield, up front. Did really well. Held the ball up really well. Allowed Arsenal to skip the press. He won his duels. He recycled play. And then again, in October, he had a 15-minute cameo up front against Man City when Arsenal won 1-0, and he looked pretty good. As far as I can tell, I'm scratching the memory banks a little bit, checking all the websites. He was sort of in a front two with Jesus against Luton in December, but it was in January against Liverpool in the Cup when Arsenal hammered Liverpool but randomly lost 2-0. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Just a couple of breakaway goals. I think it might have been a weird own goal from Gabriel. They were brilliant. Arsenal were brilliant and Havertz was brilliant up front, but they lost. 1 month later, February 2024, Liverpool in the league. This time they won 3-1. He was up front. He was brilliant. It's weird sitting here now, in my mind, such an established forward, looking back and realising that it was only in February, pretty late in the season, could we really argue that Havertz established himself as an Arsenal striker rather than just splitting in between those roles?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think he was signed as that Granit Xhaka replacement, who of course went to Leverkusen and had that unbelievable season last year. But he's such a different player to Granit Xhaka, who's like progressive passing into the final third is always amongst the best in Europe. And that wasn't really Havertz's best traits. And it did start really poorly at Arsenal. You know, he failed to register a goal or assist in his first 9 games. And Chelsea...
Do you remember the nature of the goal that he got in the end?
Yeah, it was a penalty at Bournemouth, which was kind of given to... I saw it. It was like a pity penalty, effectively.
Yeah, so they were 2-0 up at Bournemouth, and this is the penalty to go 3-0 up. And Martin Ødegaard, this is a good captain move from Martin Ødegaard. He says, I need to get Kai off the mark here. And that's exactly what he did. And he gave him the penalty. He ended up winning 4-0. So even if he'd have missed, it wouldn't have been a problem. But there was a feeling around Arsenal at that point that they desperately needed Kai Havertz to score a goal. Was that in game week 9? I think
it might have been even further. Then from there, to say he never really looked back is a bit of an exaggeration. But, over the next couple of months, there was winners against Brentford and Luton. He scored a big goal against Brighton just before Christmas time as well. That was pretty pivotal. But it was clear that even when he arrived, some people had huge doubts because his final season at Chelsea was really poor. And, his whole time at Chelsea wasn't great either. But in his final year, he was missing a number of big opportunities for Chelsea. And look, I think you can give him some slack during his time at Chelsea. He worked under a huge array of different managers. He was signed by Lampard, was quickly used by Tuchel, whose 3-4-3 didn't really play to Havertz's strengths necessarily, and did obviously score that huge goal. But then he, has that spell under Potter when there's 30 players at the club and numerous other strikers and forwards are being signed at the same time. He signed during COVID, moved to a new country alone, was still really young, got COVID, I think maybe even twice.
Got COVID, I was about to say, before, at the very start of his move, I remember tweeting about this and being like, Kai Havertz has got COVID, and so he's not playing at the moment. And then the next game week, he was getting all sorts of slander. I was like, this dude's had like 2 training sessions. Can everyone leave off a little?
It was really brutal, wasn't it? And, Chelsea, a number of different forwards at Chelsea didn't really work out at that time. Their top scorers in 2021 were Tammy and Timo Werner with 12. And in 22-23, he top scored in all competitions with Raheem Sterling with 9. Like, it was the real bleak times for Chelsea going forward. Tuchel's sides were amazing defensively, but in terms of attacking cohesion and attacking entertainment and just goals,
they never really hunted for more than one, did they?
Well, exactly. They were very, very happy without it. But there were still some positives that made you think, well, maybe Mikel Arteta's got something to work with. Only Son made more off-the-ball runs in 22-23 in the Premier League. He ranked 3rd behind Son and Watkins for attacking runs. Only Mo Salah got the ball after making an attacking run more than Havertz in the Premier League. His aerial duel success rate was amazing throughout his entire time at Chelsea. In his last season, he was winning close to 60% of his aerial duels. That was more than Mitrovic and Ivan Toney. There was some useful stuff there.
This is some awesome stats.
Yeah. But then it comes to sort of February this year, and not only has Granit Xhaka left, but the player that you were probably going to play second fiddle to, at least as a number 9, in Gabriel Jesus, just can't and still can't stay fit, which really opened the door for him to take his place. And he's really smashed down the door.
Yeah, so we can move on to Havertz as a striker for Arsenal in a moment. Just to round off the midfielder and the early days, I remember doing a TIFO video about 3 weeks into the season because editor JJ Bull was like, do you want to do a video on Havertz? Because he's been awful, which is true. He was awful. And you were watching him and he was playing in the centre of an Arsenal midfield that was dominating games. And he was not controlling games. He was completing like 20, 25 passes. It was nothing. His best, he wasn't scoring, he wasn't shooting, he wasn't getting into those positions, he wasn't dynamic, he wasn't beating players on the ball, there was no burst, there was nothing in his legs, there was no aggression. He was good at winning second balls and he was good at pressing because he's a clever player. And that was about it. And I remember a few Arsenal fans, early days going, well, he's got some good traits, he's showing us some good stuff, you just have to look into it. I'm like, look, he cost 65 million. He needs to show you more than winning second balls. Lee Cattermole won second balls, right? Sorry, that's one.
He did. And red cards at the same time.
I don't think any red cards for Havertz, fortunately. But things have started to change, and that is, of course, him going up front. Back end of last season, he was roughly at a 1-2 rate for the back half of last season. I think it was 9 goals in roughly 18 games, which is, that's the hit rate that we have long judged strikers against. He is a striker. He is bagging 1 and 2. Then over the last week or so, Arteta has started to talk about Havertz and his chances of hitting 20 goals in the league, the fabled "you are a very good striker" mark that we have in England. He's talked about slight changes in Havertz's mindset, which may enable him to get there. I think that's also pointing us in the direction of Kai Havertz accepting that he is a striker, because to me, it's been obvious for the last 3 years that he's a forward. And to him, I think he's disagreed. It does happen with footballers sometimes. And he's finally kind of come round to it. Okay, I am probably a striker. Arsenal, when was the last time they had a 20-goal season striker in the Premier League? Do you know?
Ooh, Aubameyang never did it.
Yes, he did.
Did he?
Yeah, it was Aubameyang. It was in 2019-20.
He shared the golden boot 3 ways, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he did, yeah. He did indeed. Salah and Mane?
Salah and Mane, yeah.
Not Vardy that year.
Yeah, I think so. Saka was top scorer last season with 16. And I think the year after Aubameyang did it in 2020, Lacazette got about 12. Like Arsenal have not had this figure for a long time. I'm not in the camp that it has cost them. That's a whole different thing. Do Arsenal need that 25 goal season striker, or are they better as a sum of the parts? Havertz is part of this machine now, and he's doing really well. He netted in 7 consecutive home games. He's equaled a record set by Robin van Persie back in 2012. So scored against Everton, Wolves, Brighton, Bolton, Leicester, PSG, and Southampton in consecutive home games. And as far as I can tell, and this might be the most telling stat, that Arsenal's loss to Bournemouth was the first Premier League game that they've actually lost with him up front. And even that has some mitigating factors, right? Because Saliba obviously got sent off in the first half and they played a fair chunk of time with 10 men. So they've lost just one game down the stretch of last season, Villa, but he was back in midfield, and one game this season in the league, and that was against Bournemouth with some mitigating circumstances.
So that in itself is a great marker for how good Arsenal are when he plays up front, which he does almost all of the time now. So aside from the goal scoring, the duels, the link-up play, the running in behind, the other elements of the striker, how does he stack up to the best?
I think he's got a very, very complete all-round game. He works really, really hard. He's in the top 4% of forwards for interceptions, top 15% for aerial duels won. His 46% aerial duel win percentage is more than Fabian Schär, it's more than Chris Wood, more than Declan Rice, it's more than Manuel Akanji, players that you think of as really physically dominant. Yeah. He's very good at retaining possession. His pass completion's higher than Bruno Fernandes and Cole Palmer.
Hang on a minute. You can't be giving people credit for having a higher pass completion percentage than Bruno Fernandes.
Bruno Fernandes plays deeper than him, though. So technically it is easier for Bruno Fernandes to keep...
Bruno completes no pass.
I get your point, but still, as an attacking midfielder versus a striker, you have, potentially more space than someone on your back as soon as you get the ball. I get your point. Yeah. Bruno Fernandes is probably not the best indication, but Cole Palmer I thought was quite interesting. And the only thing that, he's not totally great at is dribbling, but I don't think that's really needed when so much of his role is to bring other midfielders into play. Declan Rice often makes runs beyond the forwards now. Odegaard will soon be able to do that once again. Dropping the ball off to Odegaard, who can then link up with Saka and continue his relationship with Ben White or Timber, who's been playing a right back this year as well. He's really, really an impressive all-round player. The only issue is that we probably haven't seen it for long enough to make a complete, definite call that he is now an elite striker. I think that's the difficulty you get into. 20 league goals and assists last year, brilliant. But that's one fewer than Anthony Gordon. That's one fewer than Jean-Philippe Mateta. It was only one more than Julian Alvarez, who, actually he played a lot of minutes at Man City last year, but is not necessarily a key man there. It feels like we need to see a full season of it to maybe secure it in our minds. But this season, it started really well. He's on track to score over 20 goals. His XG per 90 is now at 0.81. At Haaland, this season at 0.87. So it's a pretty impressive numbers to be getting behind. And I think it should be brought to everyone's attention as well, the sort of company that he's keeping at the top of the Premier League goal-scoring charts. He does rank joint 10th with a number of players, but he's just one behind Watkins, Salah, Luis Diaz, who went off like a rocket this year, Chris Wood, who can't stop scoring for Nottingham Forest. And then you're getting into the Haalands and Cole Palmers of this world, of course. But that's the sort of company that he's keeping. And, his shots per 90 are at the highest they've ever been in his career. His shots on target per 90 at the highest they've ever been in his career. And he just feels like he's rising to the occasion consistently for Arsenal now and fulfilling a variety of roles, his physicality. And given the fact that he was signed as that sort of midfielder, it feels like he's really now nailed down his starting spot as Arsenal's number 9.
Can you believe school is back already?
I know, right? The year is going by so fast. And this year, I'm going to help the schools in my neighborhood by donating through Donors Choose.
That's an amazing idea. Donors Choose is the most trusted nonprofit that connects teachers and kids to donors who believe in them.
And their site is so easy to use. Searching for a local school on their map and finding match offers to boost my donation is a breeze.
Visit donorschoose.org/local and give today.
At T. Rowe Price, our curiosity lights the way to help you plan ahead for what matters to you most. Work directly with us, and together we can help uncover the right investments for you at every stage of your life, whatever your goals. That's the power of curiosity. Better questions, better outcomes. T. Rowe Price. Invest with confidence. Visit troweprice.com/investdirect to learn more.
Your dining room is the heart of your home, where meals are shared and memories are made. At Ashley, you'll find affordable dining furniture in a range of classic and modern styles. Ashley's small space sets and extendable tables are designed to fit beautifully into any space, from cozy breakfast nooks and kitchens to formal dining areas fit for a feast. And with mix-and-match seating options, everyone at your table gets the perfect seat. At Ashley, style is served. Shop in-store or online today.
Before we get into real answering the final question of this podcast, Sam, I suppose, what is an elite striker to you? What's your kind of definition?
Well, and who are we comparing him against? Because ultimately, it's a similar conversation to the world-class debate. It's like, how many players can be elite? There has to be a finite number. You can't. There's no threshold. You can't just point score them and say, well, actually, yeah, there are 17 elite strikers because they're all X good. I think it's a category. I think it's a number of people. And so I don't know exactly how many this is. I'm not going to be as stingy about this as world class.
Do you actually? I actually completely disagree with you.
Why?
I think you can have as many elite players. You like if you ranked everyone out, if you rated everyone out of 10, right? And you had it, I think you could be like, okay, there can only be 3 world class, and you can come into that definition. But anyone above an 8 is elite. Like, that's kind of where I'm at on that kind of scale. I don't think this is the same kind of controlled by numbers discussion as a world class one is, and I think that is actually quite a different discussion.
Yeah,
because I think that you can have this kind of point where someone at a level, you're not cutting them off because there's a set cutoff, because elite doesn't mean the same thing.
Yeah,
I think this is a kind of level where, like, if you can put them in a bracket with these same kind of players around them, then you don't have to have like a number cap on it.
So I was going with, let's go with like tier 1 is world class, and there's a finite number of positions available in tier 1, and then tier 2 is elite, and there's another finite number. It's a bigger tier.
It's like a pyramid.
So if there's like 3 world class strikers, then there are 5 elite, and then there's a tier 3 or whatever. But maybe that is the wrong way to look at it. Maybe, I don't know. But I still feel
you decide.
I still feel like the best way to do this is to measure him up to his peers, and try and look around the leagues and try to figure out, well, how many players can you name across the top 5 leagues and a few other stragglers as well? How many strikers do you think are genuinely 100% better than Kai Havertz? And if the number is too big, that I don't think he can be considered elite. That's kind of how I approach this. So I've put together a little list of strikers.
This is great because I've also got my list. So
who I think are definitely better.
Yeah.
So it's not a case of like maybe, possibly, ever so slightly. These guys are definitely better than Kai Havertz. Harry Kane, Lewandowski, Erling Haaland, Osimhen, Isak, Watkins, Morata. 7.
Wow. So mine is exactly the same with one change.
You haven't got Morata in there.
No, I don't have Morata in there, and I've got Lautaro Martinez in there instead.
I didn't make him a striker.
I would have Marcus Thuram in there as well.
I've got him on my, I don't know, but he's not in bold on my page.
I think I would rather have Kai Havertz than Alvaro Morata in my team.
Do you know what I realised during this process? That they have become very similar players.
Yeah.
Look at the role Alvaro Morata played at the Euros for Spain and the role he is now playing for Milan, supporting Tammy Abraham. The amount of stuff he does backwards towards the ball, the work rate, the facilitating. I actually realised during this that they're basically becoming the same player. Maybe they're kind of like regressing to the same mean, backwards and forwards. But I would now consider Morata and Havertz as extremely similar players. But I would say that what you were asking for earlier about proof over a more continued and long period, I would say Morata has that, whereas Kai Havertz doesn't. So I put him in my list as definitely. I've got about 20 other names here who could be in the conversation, depending on your feelings on, let's go with like Kolo Muani, really good. Julian Alvarez, really good. Thuram, exceptional. Boniface, exceptional. Are they definitely better? For me, no, they're not definitely better. They might be. So I just ruled them out. So I came up with 7 names that I think are definitely better. And then it's anyone's game. And you know what? I thought there'd be more.
Yeah, I did exactly the same thing as you. I did clearly better, and we've already said the same players pretty much except for Lautaro and
you had Watkins
Morata.
And you're clearly better.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Good lad. I always like doing it.
I had Isak. Isak was... I also had Victor Osimhen as well, to be honest.
Yeah, I do. I have him here. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
You had him as well.
Yeah. I nearly forgot about him because he went to Turkey.
Yeah, I felt a bit weird about that.
Scored yet, I don't think.
Yeah, and Isak's got so many injury issues, but at his best, he is awesome. Whose level is he around is what I called it. And I had Julian Alvarez, Lois Openda, Marcus Thuram, Šeško, Diogo Jota, Boniface, and Lukaku?
Yeah.
I don't know whether Lukaku's a bit lucky to get into that
Depends
category.
On his mood.
Yeah. And then I had...
Is it an on year or an off year?
Then I had... Yeah, is he working with Conte? Then I had, who is he better than? I had Darwin Nunez, Højlund, Vlahovic, Ramos, David, and Nicholas Jackson, which might annoy some Chelsea
and
supporters.
A bunch of others too, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of
Solanke, Dovbyk, Girassi, Ekitike. Like
you haven't mentioned Rodrigo Muniz yet.
Haven't mentioned, yeah. So he's definitely better than Rodrigo Muniz.
So what I kind of thought was he's definitely amongst the top 15 strikers in the world. There's an argument that he's in the top 10, but in the 7 to 10 range.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of happy with him being there. So for me, he is on the verge of definitely being classified as elite. But I'd maybe want to see another 6 months. I'd like to see a full season of it. You know, when your best goal scoring season since Leverkusen is 14 goals in all competitions. We need to see more.
We do need to see more, but we need to be very careful to not hang it all on the goals.
True.
Because we've spent a fair bit of time here talking about how he's very good at a lot of other things. And if you look at the list of top scorers in Europe's top 5 leagues right now, and you know, Kai Havertz is in the top 9 for goals. Well done to him. He's sharing the stage with Cole Palmer and Burmo, Barcola, Marmouche, who's been absolutely unbelievable. But also Haaland and Thuram, and also Retegui, who I think is useless, obviously, because he is a pure goal scorer and nothing else. So I hate him.
This is Rank's heritage, but also nonsense.
No. So you have to be a bit careful because Retegui has scored loads of goals this season. But he does absolutely nowhere near as much for his team in those other facets as Kai Havertz.
Like a Vlahovic.
And this is why earlier on, when I said to my friend Carl, who supports Liverpool, do you think Havertz is better than Jota? And he went, well, it depends what you want from your striker. And it's a very fair answer. Because Jota is, he was just dodging me. Because, Jota is an exceptional sharpshooter. He's a better finisher than Kai Havertz, no question about it. But Kai Havertz does a lot more for you in the build-up. It does a lot for you in terms of duels. So I don't want to get to the point here where we agree that the ultimate measure of Kai Havertz is how many goals did he score? Because it's not fair on him and it takes away from his skill set. So yes, I want to see that. Yes, I want to see more. But let's not forget that those other elements of his game are very, very important.
Yeah, I completely agree. Unfortunately, though, there will be an element where goals play a huge role. Arsenal have decided this summer, they tried to go for Sesko. They tried to go for... Was there anyone else that they tried to go for? They were definitely looking in the striker market and they decided not to. And Gabriel Jesus is continually injured. Kai Havertz, if he plays a full season at number 9 with the creative talent that is Bukayo Saka alongside him, hopefully Odegaard comes back in reasonable form. People will be critical if he doesn't score 15 league goals. And yes, he does bring a lot else to the table, but so do a lot of the other players that we've talked about as well. Like Marcus Thuram brings a lot else to the table. Boniface is a brilliant link-up player. Lukaku's actually been pretty good at that this season as well, and in seasons gone by as well. So there is definitely, if he's not bringing an elite amount of goals to the table, he's kind of got to be elite at something else. And I kind of think that Kai Havertz at the moment is very, very good at a number of things, but maybe not exceptional at any one thing at the moment.
Yes, the problem is that the one thing that he's probably most likely to be elite at is off the ball runs.
Yeah.
And how do you even how do you quantify that?
And no one's like, God, he won another aerial duel.
Oh, wow. Do you see how many runs he made the weekend? 47. Haaland only made 30. Yeah. We don't say those things. That's not how we talk. So it is a bit of a challenge for sure. Jack, do you have any final inputs?
Well, a couple actually. And I think one of them is really interesting is the Benzema question, which
I forgot about Benzema.
Always spoken about. And when Real Madrid lost Karim Benzema and off he went, I posited that they should sign Kai Havertz. That was the move that they should do in order to replace him and actually move on with a similar kind of system with a player who does similar things. So there's that question. Benzema was always underrated, I think, for many years until very late on in his career because of his facilitation work as opposed to actually being the man scoring the goals. And I wonder if there is at least a little bit of that in Havertz. The other thing, I suppose, is that whilst consistency is a fair thing to ask for, and I agree with you in terms of having to see things over a longer period of time, I'm of the opinion that Kai Havertz's versatility has really harmed him in this regard. And it's a phrase we use quite regularly, that versatility is a great thing, but it also does hold you back at times.
Yes, it does.
And he was one of these very rare players, and Julian Alvarez is a good comparison in some ways as well, because he did this, who played as we talked about 9.5 before, right? Yeah. Players who were halfway between a 9 and a 10. Havertz and Alvarez occupied this odd space, which was the 8.5, which they either played as an 8 or they played up front. And those are two very different positions. And I wonder if just the idea is that because Havertz could do a lot of different jobs, and you mentioned, Sam, that Villa game where he dropped back into midfield and he was good in that game.
Yeah,
Arsenal lost because they didn't have what he had facilitating up front. That if that has kind of harmed him, and a lot of elite managers have now put Havertz in the 9. So Tuchel did it at Chelsea. And I remember kicking off because everyone kept calling him a false 9. I was he's playing up front as a 9.
Yeah, he's running the channels.
A false 9.
He's running this many aerial duels.
Nagelsmann brought him in and went, yep, you're playing up front. And now Arteta's doing something very, very similar as well. And I think that as a sense of where he's at as a positional thing is slightly different to actually maybe looking back at it differently from his days at Chelsea and even Leverkusen, where he actually did do a lot of work as a 9 there as well. It was sort of went under the radar because everyone was calling him the next Thomas Müller, but he did actually do a lot of his best work leading the line for Leverkusen all the way back then.
He did. Look, I just want to talk about Benzema there as you bring him up. He's a great comparison point there. Facilitator first, goal scorer second during the Ronaldo and Bale era, and then later, blossoms, spreads his wings even further and becomes, got like goal scorer extraordinaire and also facilitator, and ends up, winning the Ballon d'Or and is rightly recognised for his achievements. But just flicking back through, Benzema's goal scoring records. So during the time when he was the facilitator, so what, 2010, 2011, 15 league goals, 5 assists, 11, 2012, 21 league goals, 7 assists. The bloke was insane. Yeah. Even when he wasn't really a striker, he was bagging 15 to 21 goals consistently, 11 the next season with 11 assists, then 17, then 15, then 24. I can't remember exactly when it is that he became the main man, but the goals didn't even jump up that high. Yes, to 27 and in 21, 22, but piling them in even when he was the facilitator first and foremost. Look, Havertz obviously is that, and Saka was top scorer for Arsenal last season for a reason. And the fact that Arsenal, and the year before that, it was Martinelli and Odegaard got 15 each in the league, Saka 16 last season. So Arsenal have been finding ways to get goals from other sources all this time, and it's a method that Mikel Arteta is clearly wedded to. He has talked about Havertz making this leap to 20 goals here. Literally in the last 5 days or so, he has talked about that. But I don't think he's looking for Havertz to sacrifice any other parts of his game. I think he wants everything that he brings to the table. And if you can just develop that killer mindset a little bit more and hit that 20 mark, maybe the conversations about whether Arsenal needed to sign that big striker, elite striker, will be made redundant once and for all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want to compliment a couple of the finishes this season as well. The goal against Brighton is really, really nice. I think I can't remember who it is. I think it's Verbruggen maybe running out and he kind of chips him. That's an exceptional finish. I loved the goal against PSG just last week. It was a great ball in by Trossard, but that is sort of Havertz. Havertz is so good in the box at winning balls to either drop down to teammates or to hold up play, but also just to head in as well naturally. And then the goal against Southampton at the weekend, I think it just kind of went under the radar how sort of clean that strike is, arrowing into the bottom left-hand corner. So he does really kind of have everything to his game, and he's on a real hot streak of form, and long may it continue, because with Martinelli's form up and down, although recent little turn back, I think, in the last few games to sort of peak Martinelli, with Odegaard out injured, they kind of need Havertz to continue this run of form if they want to stay in the Premier League hunt, because, through various circumstances of losing players to injury and red cards, etc., Arsenal faced a lot more traffic than in years gone by. They haven't looked as solid, and I don't think some of their players have necessarily had the best start to the season compared to last year. Declan Rice being the key player, I would suggest. So Havertz, keep this going, and it's a very, very exciting season coming up for you in Arsenal.
So is he an elite forward? Is he an elite striker?
Let's do it. I'm going for it. Yeah, I think he's in the top 10 strikers in the world, which for me classifies as elite.
So I really was not expecting to say this because, well, first of all, when I wrote the list of names down that I thought he might be better, it just ends up it's a really short list. If I've only got 7 that are definitely better, then he's right in that conversation. I almost don't want to say it, Dougie, so I'm just going to balance the conversation and say no, so we get a bit of yin and yang.
Okay.
I don't know what it is that's drawing me back. Maybe it's just my gut instincts. Maybe I'm just too stingy. Maybe I do want to see it over a longer period of time. I'm going to go with no, but I think he'll be there by the end of the season because to hammer the point home, he is very, very, very good. Jack, your assessment?
Ballon d'Or soon comes.
Okay. That makes him an elite striker 2-1. I think I've been outvoted, maybe. We'll see. All right.
Only 25 as well. Plenty of time.
Only 25, and his career's just beginning because he's only just realised which position he plays in. 24 wasted years. We'll have to see. Right. That's it from us. Thank you, Dougie.
Pleasure, Sam.
Thank you, Jack.
Always a pleasure, Sam.
And thank you, everyone who has listened. We'll see you next week.
Your dining room is the heart of your home, where meals are shared and memories are made. At Ashley, you'll find affordable dining furniture in a range of classic and modern styles. Ashley small space sets and extendable tables are designed to fit beautifully into any space, from cozy breakfast nooks and kitchens to formal dining areas fit for a feast. And with mix-and-match seating options, everyone at your table gets the perfect seat. At Ashley, style is served. Shop in-store or online today.